All right, we're live. Welcome, everybody, to the latest episode of the TechForge podcast, the weekly tech podcast here on CrossForge Gaming. I am your host, Dynamo Ned. You can just call me Ned, though. And we have both of our co-hosts back this week. So, how's everybody been doing? I know, Hunter, you have been out for work. How did that go?
Well, I was out for vacation.
Oh,
I went to Indiana, went to Gin last week. I have never seen so many board games in my life. That is board game heaven. In one section of there's Lucas Oil Stadium, like a football stadium. In one section of that stadium, that was called the Games Library, where you can go and get a library card, which is a barcode scanned card or whatever. You can check out 2 games at a time out of 4,000 games.
That's insane.
Like 2 sections of 2 sides of like, I don't know, 8. It's 2 rows of like 8 things of games, a bunch of games, current ones, older games made on PC games like StarCraft Risk. There was StarCraft, the board game, Stargate SG-1 board game, all the Munchkin versions, other games that people may not have heard of. And then around that were the tournament board games, like, and also card games and stuff. Magic the Gathering, of course, was big there. In the convention center, which is next to Lucas Oil Stadium, there were 2 floors of board games. The bottom floor had like beta games that were being created, needed beta testers, independent games. The vendor hall with demoed games if you're going to buy them. Second floor had like 3 publishers of games and like 6 to 10 games of those. Codenames was big. Codenames actually won an award for being like the best or most popular board game of whatever demographic they went for. It was a lot of stuff for like 4 days.
Cool. So yeah, sounds like Gen Con was a lot of fun. And hey, at least you didn't get punched.
Yeah.
Was there an issue, like some violence or something?
Well, Jeremy Hambley over at Unsleeved Media got punched out by a guy at a bar while he was attending Gen Con, and it kind of became a big brouhaha all over YouTube.
Oh, jeez.
But that's not what we're trying to talk about today. Let's focus on the tech.
Yeah.
All right. So a little bit of a shorter show this evening, I think, because we have one big topic we want to focus on, and that's going to be Threadripper, as you might have guessed from all the releases this past week.
Mm-hmm.
You know, all the unboxing videos, all of the announcements, the leaks of benchmarks and all that other stuff. And of course, pre-orders are now available for the 2990 WX. But first, let's take a look at some of the smaller stories in the tech world. Smaller being a relative term in this case, because Intel has confirmed their Cooper Lake and Ice Lake SP CPUs for 2019 and 2020.
Plus. Sorry, I had to throw that out there. You're welcome.
So this is coming from WCCF Tech, but this is available directly from Intel's website if you want to find it there. But Intel unveiled their latest Xeon Scalable Family Roadmap. And in it, it details their next generation 14 nanometer, as Jason put it, plus processors, as well as their 10 nanometer Ice Lake processors that are supposed to be coming in 2020. And so this confirms a lot of the rumors we've talked about in the last few weeks about Intel holding off on 10 nanometer until late 2019 for production purposes. And if they were going to launch their 10 nanometer Xeons in 2020, of course, that would make sense. So we're going to the successor to the current Skylake X and Kaby Lake X lines is going to be Cooper Lake SP, releasing in 2019.
Interesting.
So Cooper Lake, of course, is going to be based on their 14 nanometer process. It is going to be on what they call a new generation platform with significant performance improvement, new I/O features, new Intel DL boost capabilities, and additional Optane persistent memory innovations. If that sounds like a lot of marketing speak, it's because it is.
Yeah, it's a lot of marketing crap, but that Intel Optane deal, that's gonna be the real deal. That's probably gonna be like the coolest feature of that platform.
Yeah.
Everything else is just me.
Right. And I forgot to mention about Cascade Lake. Cascade Lake is going to be also on 14 nanometer process, but it's going to include internal Intel Optane DC persistent memory.
That's really cool.
Basically as a cache. So that, I think, is going to be something neat. And that particular set of processors, Cascade Lake, is targeted to release later this year, in 2018.
So I think persistent memory could be a real game changer in how people use their PCs, especially in HEDT and in the enterprise.
Yeah, if you're going to be getting work done on your PC, if it's going to be a productivity machine first and foremost, then having that persistent memory so that you don't lose work when the power goes out, or if you have a hard drive failure, so that so the system can basically be treated hot swappable for practically everything. That could be a huge game changer. No.
Well, yeah, especially in the enterprise where I don't know if the average is still the same, but like I want to say 7 or 8 years ago, the average part of your infrastructure that was used was around 10 to 15%. So if you have persistent memory, you simply just spin down or turn off your infrastructure pieces that aren't being utilized, and then spin them up when they are needed. So that would be huge power savings.
Right, because for consumers, we generally don't think about how much power a hard drive uses, because we generally have, one or maybe a few hard drives. When you're looking at whole arrays of 20, 30, 40, 50, 100 drives, keeping all those drives spinning and usable is a significant power draw.
Not to mention keeping your CPUs idle. I mean, each individual part doesn't consume a lot, but when you're looking at all of the parts holistically, that's a lot of power.
Yeah.
Let's see, was there anything else interesting in this announcement?
A lot of market speak, man.
Yeah, it really is, but they are saying that with Cascade Lake and Ice Lake, they're going to start moving to more U.2 slots. U.2 is not something you see commonly in the consumer space, but in the enterprise space, U.2 is invaluable for the fact that it basically lets you, it does something similar to M.2, but it's like an internal Thunderbolt almost.
How is that better than PCI Express?
Well, it's all routed through the PCI Express bus.
Mm-hmm.
But U.2 has the advantage that you can cram a lot more storage because it sits vertically instead of horizontally.
Oh, that's interesting.
Like I said, U.2 in the consumer space didn't really take off. But in the enterprise space, apparently, it's a big deal. And with Ice Lake, they're claiming up to 16 U.2 devices on a single socket.
Wow. But they have just like a motherboard with a bunch of U.2 not horizontal.
Sounds like it.
Yeah, bunch of those on the board, I guess. Because U.2 is on the board.
Right. It's very similar to M.2 in its construction. It's just smaller.
But isn't the U.2 the NVMe?
Yes.
M.2 or whatever? The NVMe drives?
And U.2 also supports NVMe drives.
Yeah.
Let's see.
Well, M.2 gets kind of funny though in its support structure because you'll have some M.2 sockets or slots or whatever that support either SATA or PCIe controllers, and then you'll have some that only support PCIe controllers.
So, right, because yeah, that's one of the artifacts from the fact that on consumer boards, you're generally limited to a set number of PCIe lanes that the CPU gets to begin with. And usually it's some relatively low number, like 16 or 24.
Usually 16, I want to say.
And so, if you're going to handle multi-GPU or you're going to handle anything beyond a single graphics card, we'll say on the PCIe bus, it means you have to use dividers, basically. And so, since your average M.2 uses PCIe times 4, you typically are going to find on most motherboards a times 16 slot that can be either times 16 or times 8 with a times 4 PCIe. And then if there's a second M.2, it's usually either going to be times 2 PCIe or it's going to be a SATA-based M.2 slot.
Yeah. I know of one board that's like that. It's I think it's the ASRock Pro 4. I know the micro ATX. I think it's of that same brand. It's a white and black board because it's the only micro ATX motherboard that has 2 M.2 slots on it. But it's either you can't have 2 M.2 slots, M.2 SSDs on there at the same time. There's only one can be used at one time, and it's either going to be using the SATA or the NVMe. I found that out because I wanted to use that board and have 2 SSDs in there, but you can only use one at a time because of the bandwidth limitation.
Is that what chipset?
That is the...
Is that Z370 or?
No, that's the B350 Ryzen board.
Okay.
Yeah, that is one of the B350 limitations.
Yeah. Because there are the X-Force or X370 boards that have 2 or 3 M.2 slots that you can use at the same time. This B350 can't.
I know X470's got some additional.
Yeah.
I want to say X470 has like 4 additional PCIe lanes. I don't remember if they're 2 or 3 though.
Yeah, I want to say X470 has up to 24 PCIe lanes.
You could be right. I'm not entirely sure.
I'd have to go look it up again, but I know it is a step up technically from X370.
Yeah.
Well, I mean, and to their credit though, they're light duty chipsets, and if you're just sporting one video card and maybe an M.2 SSD, maybe an additional data drive if it's another SSD or a hard drive. I mean, if you start going below 8 lanes for your video card, then you'll probably see some performance degradation. But I highly doubt you see much between 8 and 16, unless you're doing 4K and a bunch of other crazy stuff. Maybe
honestly, we're not even to the point yet where we've completely saturated PCIe 3.0 times 8 with even your high-end graphics cards. I mean, there's a reason why most SLI and Crossfire configurations are by 8 by 8.
Oh, yeah.
That doesn't surprise me. PCIe 3.0 is very fast.
And honestly, the main reason we haven't moved on to the 4.0 spec, even though it was drafted years ago, is there's not really any need to.
Right. It ain't broke.
Speaking of broke, Cisco might be, because they acquired Duo Security for $2.35 billion with a B billion dollars.
Oh.
Cisco had that kind of cash rolling around?
Apparently, according to this story from CNBC.
It's impressive.
And so, but this is not the biggest purchase Cisco has ever made. Cisco purchased the company AppDynamics in 2017 for $3.7 billion. Of course, Cisco is, you might be familiar with them. They're famous for their internet infrastructure hardware, as well as their cybersecurity stuff that they do.
Yep.
There's a saying in the IT world, no one ever got fired for buying Cisco.
Well, that and their support infrastructure is huge. They've got certifications, and they've got entire roles based on that stuff.
CCNA and CCNA, Cisco Certified Network Administrator. I think that certification alone is pretty big.
There's lots of people in those roles too that make pretty good coin.
Oh yeah, it's either that one or the CCSP or whatever it is that only 10% of people who take it pass it, and it costs $1,000 to take it.
Jeez.
Yeah.
Not surprising.
But if you pass that certification, you can work anywhere.
Yeah, anywhere that uses Cisco hardware, and that's basically everywhere.
Yeah. You're in basically the top 10% of...
Oh, don't you need some... I mean,
security.
I could see you getting like an entry-level job somewhere for a year or two, maybe 3. Then maybe
you'd probably be if you have that certification, you get an entry-level job, you're overqualified.
Well, it depends on which CC certification you get. If you start off with the CCNA, which is the Network Associate one, then yeah, that pretty much guarantees you an entry-level or like one step up position. After that, you have to get like the engineer and then the network architect and like the certified system engineer one. And but yeah, the thing is, once you get to the highest levels of Cisco certification, you can basically write your own checks.
Yeah.
Because anyway, off topic, but Cisco acquired private security firm Duo Security. They are a private security company based out of Ann Arbor, Michigan, and provides cloud-based tools to prevent security breaches on devices, which Cisco has had some embarrassing breaches on their devices in the last few years.
Ah.
Smart move.
Interesting.
So, according to... Oh, lost it there. According to CEO Chuck Robbins, who took over from John Chambers in 2015, we continue to rapidly innovate in security to address key areas of concern for our customers, such as security in their complex data centers. Any workload anywhere across physical and multiple cloud environments is what they strive for.
You know, this, if you read between the lines, I get the feeling like this is stock protection.
You're probably right.
It's a great move. I mean, I don't know much about Duo Security, but I mean, on paper it looks good.
I mean, my experience with Cisco is largely limited to what I did in school and working with some of their free tools that are available. I've considered getting my Cisco certification in the past, but honestly, ponying up that kind of money to take that test is always what deters me.
Yeah.
Which is kind of funny, you know, dropping $1,200 on a new PC. Yeah, sure, I can do that. Ponying up $1,000 for a test.
Well, you make your employer do it. You make your employer do it. You put it on a training plan for the year, and you're like, "That's one of my goals for the year." And then,
see, I tried that, and HR said no.
That makes sense.
They said, your position doesn't currently require that you know that, so we're not going to cover that this year.
Yeah. If a certification is outside the scope, then they won't do it.
Yeah, unless you're a wizard at creating business cases, I guess. I don't know.
Let's see, what else do we have here? Oh, yes. Apple makes history by becoming the first U.S. company to reach $1 trillion in market value.
Makes me sick. Makes me sick. They have no reason. I'm sorry, go ahead. I'll go on my rant here after you.
Wait.
So this comes from USA Today. Apple is the first publicly traded U.S. company to hit a market valuation of $1 trillion. This happened apparently on August 2nd.
Congrats, but their stock is still $207, which is really low compared to a $1 trillion company. Google is worth more than that.
Right. The main difference with Apple is that they have a much higher, what's the term? They have a much higher market pool. They have a lot more stocks They have a lot more stocks out there than Google does.
I wonder if the recent i9 debacle, i9 MacBook debacle, hit their stocks a little bit. As I was watching a YouTube video today, one YouTuber made a video reviewing it, and then like a bunch of people started talking about his reviews. And then Apple responded, that's the thing that we talked about a podcast or two ago with the, we're going to give a software update to fix the thermals.
That's an interesting question, actually, because with their you have to replace it to fix it culture, You're always buying something new every year, 2, maybe 3. So their entire, you know, all of their market shares are essentially buying new equipment whenever their stuff breaks.
Yep.
So I wonder how far insulated they are from that, considering their market culture. You know
they don't like right to repair. So I've heard from even Apple fans that they don't even like the terms of service that Apple has, and like I'm saying, I'm wondering how that affects their market share. Apparently, I guess it doesn't, because they're a $1 trillion company.
go ahead.
To try and answer that question for you, according to the stock ticker I'm looking at, it looks like in the past year, the high point was this past Tuesday at 9:30 a.m. when it hit $209.45 a share.
Wow.
And it's basically, if we look at the last month, at the beginning of last month, July the 9th, it was at $190.58.
Wow.
There was a brief dip down below 190 to 189.91 around July the 30th. That would be around the time that the news came out about the i9. But since then, it's shot back up to almost $210 a share.
So that answers the question. Yes, they are very well insulated.
Mm-hmm.
Any other company would have had some pretty big, well, maybe not big, but they definitely would have had some stock decline.
And honestly, the news about the overheating i9s really didn't make it outside the tech circles. I'm sure if you went and asked Joe Average, they probably wouldn't know anything about the fact that Macs were having overheating problems.
Yeah.
Let's see, what else do we have here?
They pretty well had patched, like, it almost seemed like they grabbed that Reddit user's patch and had a patch up available like almost overnight.
Let's see. Currently, this makes Apple the biggest stock on the S&P 500, the Standard & Poor's 500. And Apple managed to edge out Amazon, which is currently valued at $877 billion, as well as Google parent company Alphabet, which is at $858 billion, and Microsoft at $817 billion for the crown of first $1 trillion company.
Fun fact, Amazon stock is $1,886.52.
Wow.
Why didn't I have stock in Amazon a long time ago when it was actually affordable?
Yeah, you should have bought a bunch when you were back when Yahoo was bigger than Google.
Same thing with Google. Like, when I was in college, in I think first or second year, it was macroeconomics that we had this exercise to, if you had this amount of money, what stock would you put it in? At that time, Google stock was like $164 a share, and then now it's like over $1,000 a share. Yeah, If I could actually afford it when I was in college, I would have it and then sit on it for 10 or more years. I would definitely have a lot of cushion for whenever I wanted to cash out.
Indeed.
Man.
So
Back when
it
you
looks
don't
like
have enough.
it looks like the mediocre hardware manufacturer with the excellent PR department wins again.
Completely agree. 1,000% agree.
Mm-hmm.
All right, what else do we have? Oh, yes, Samsung is putting their faster, cheaper 4 terabyte SSD into mass production. It's based on their new 4-bit QLC NAND flash. So QLC stands for quad layer cell. So quick little bit of information here. So SLC stands for single layer cell, which means each cell on the flash can store 1 bit of information. It's generally the fastest form, but it's also the most prone to failure because you only have a single bit. It also has the lowest information density because you can only fit a single bit in each cell. Then you have MLC, which is called multiple, or MLC technically is the umbrella term for all the other types of NAND flash. But MLC usually refers to 2-bit per cell NAND flash, with TLC and QLC referring to 3 and 4-bit per cell NAND flash each. Obviously, QLC is new. TLC has been available for a long time on budget SSDs. But QLC is looking to basically be the successor to TLC. And because it can fit 4 bits per cell, that means you can get far more data on far smaller chips, which is how they're able to do 4 terabytes on a 2.5-inch SSD.
So after this is mass produced for a bit and they work out some manufacturing defects, pricing comes down. Hopefully pricing gets a bit lower, because I was kind of messing around on Newegg and Amazon today, and it looked like 4 terabyte drives were right around 1,000, if not a little more.
Yeah.
Right.
So hopefully they get that down a bit. And I mean, if you're looking at a SATA variant, you're not really going to see a performance difference from the last few generations to current.
Yeah, they're predicting that the QLC NAND flash is going to be slower than TLC and, you know, the other types. But they're saying even with the slower NAND flash, because it's QLC, they're expecting performance equivalent to the older 850 Evo, which will use TLC NAND flash and is a couple of generations old now, but is still an excellent drive in its own right.
I have one. It's been a great drive.
They're estimating performance at 540 megabits per second, or megabytes per second reads, and 520 megabytes per second writes. And that's about par for the course for budget SSDs today on the SATA interface. SATA 6 is largely saturated.
Yep.
I mean, in theory, you could hit up to 560 megabytes per second, but only the very best drives really hit that.
Which you're not really going to feel a difference anyway.
No.
Honestly.
Probably the biggest difference I noticed was when I moved from a SATA 3 to a SATA 6 SSD. The old SATA 3 one I had, you know, I was hitting like 285, 300 megabytes per second. And then I moved to a SATA 3 based SSD. And when I was hitting 500 megabytes per second, that was a significant difference you could feel.
Okay.
But, and of course, you can feel the difference. It's a lot harder to detect when you move from SATA to NVMe, but it's there.
That's a huge difference.
It's It's not as noticeable as, say, the move from from a hard drive to an SSD, or from like a SATA 3 to a SATA 6 SSD. But the smoothness and responsiveness of your experience is definitely noticeable.
Yeah.
I think if you're working in content creation, and you've got like a PCIe based M.2 drive versus a SATA drive, probably notice a performance difference then, depending on the workstation that you're doing the work on. But yeah, like boot speeds and everyday work, you may not see a difference, but I don't know.
Oh, speaking of Apple earlier, there's a story here. This is a slightly older one, but it's still an important one, because apparently TSMC, the Taiwanese semiconductor manufacturing company, who might be familiar to our listeners and viewers, as they do a lot of work for Apple as well as for AMD
And NVIDIA.
And NVIDIA.
and NVIDIA. TSMC had a computer virus cripple one of their iPhone chipmaker plants.
Mm-hmm.
Oh, no.
Although it's unclear who targeted TSMC, they were able to determine that the virus infected a number of the fabrication tools involved. And they were able to resume production soon afterward, but at least some of the factories, this was written on August 4th, it says they won't restart till at least Sunday, which would have been August the 5th, as we're recording this.
Mm-hmm.
And so, remember, TSMC does a lot of work for a lot of people, not just Apple and AMD and NVIDIA. They also do Qualcomm, which is Apple's biggest competitor.
Mm-hmm.
At least in the mobile space. And TSMC released an official statement where they said, quote, TSMC today provided an update on the company's computer virus outbreak on the evening of August 3rd, which affected a number of computer systems and fab tools in Taiwan. The degree of infection varied by fab. TSMC contained the problem and found a solution. As of 1400 Taiwanese time, about 80% of the company's impacted tools have been recovered, and the company expects a full recovery on August 6th. They did say that they did expect it to cause certain shipment delays, but that would have an overall negligible impact on their third quarter revenue. They did say the virus outbreak occurred due to misoperation during the software installation process for a new tool, which caused the virus to spread once the tool was connected to the company's computer network. Data integrity and confidential information was not compromised.
I am sad that it impacted TSMC, not sad that it impacted Apple.
Yep.
I could have guessed that.
So
Really?
I wonder if somebody downloaded the wrong install from the wrong website.
Who knows when it comes to manufacturing equipment and their drivers?
I want to say they probably follow more of an infrastructure-like rollout for their updates, probably for that type of equipment. I don't think you're looking at people going out to websites to update equipment like that.
But it's entirely possible that at some point, you know, their firmware had gotten hacked by someone, or it may have even happened, you know, at the vendor level, where the vendor had their driver, or their firmware, I should say, hacked for their device, and it yielded the problem it did.
Yeah, it's impressive.
You know, and this is not the first time we've heard of industrial devices being hacked. I mean, it goes all the way back to really old versions of the same idea with Stuxnet and the like.
Mm-hmm.
So yeah, make sure you install the right firmware on your industrial tools, ladies and gentlemen. All right, so our last little bit of tech news in our our quick stories here. NZXT a while back released their CRFT line, their craft line as they call it. And their first one was a PUBG inspired H500 case, which I believe was designed to look like the loot box or the the supply drop supply cache drop that is dropped every few minutes in PUBG.
Nice.
And so they've released the second in their craft line. And the second case in their craft line is based on their H700 case, and they're calling it the Nuka-Cola edition. We'll have a link to this down below in the description. But basically what it is, they collaborated with Bethesda Softworks to produce an H700 that is colored in the classic Nuka-Cola colors from Nuka-Cola from, of course, the Fallout games.
Mm-hmm.
And this case is gorgeous.
Oh, yeah.
So's the N7 motherboard that they reference in the article.
Yeah.
That's pretty, man.
Yes, they have a special cover designed to match it for their N7 Z370 motherboard as well. It's almost enough to make me want to build an Intel system.
Yeah.
Well, it'd be perfect for you, Ned, because you're the.
Oh yeah, I am definitely the Fallout fanboy of the group.
Right.
And it is a limited edition case. There are only going to be 2,000 models built. And that is why they are charging $299.99 for the case.
Yeah.
Now, that's nearly double what the H700 normally goes for. So, and that's not with the N7 motherboard.
Right.
And that's still, only $50. That's only $49.99. The cover for the motherboard. I don't know how much the motherboard actually costs, though.
The motherboard itself.
What?
Yeah.
Oh, the cover. Okay, so the cover's $50.
Yeah, because it's special painted. It's a special vinyl application.
Yeah. Well, when you get into custom work, though, is that really that bad a price? Because I mean, when you start looking at people to do custom paint for a case or something like that, like a custom mod, I don't think that's that bad of a price.
I mean, let's be honest. You're basically, if you get the motherboard, the cover, and the case, you're basically spending $600 to get the look.
Mm-hmm. But there are people who do that, even with RGB fans and case, and even the people who mod their own case. People spend a lot of money to have a specific look, or to have the best look, or to whatever. So it's not unreasonable.
Yeah, for what is essentially a ready-made custom mod, because that's basically what this is.
Yeah.
$600 is actually pretty cheap.
Yeah.
I mean, it sounds weird to say it that way, but it's true.
I actually saw at QuakeCon either 2 or 3 years ago, a guy made a Nuka-Cola refrigerator computer. And so it looked like and it even had a screen, had a look-through screen, and it had 4 of the Nuka-Cola bottles in it. And it had a Pip-Boy at the top ran by Raspberry Pi, and behind
Nice.
that part was the PC parts. So it was actually, that was his mod. So it was actually running, and it could hold, I think it held 2 or 4 actual Nuka-Cola bubbles.
Nice.
Yeah, it's pretty impressive.
Oh, one thing I did forget to mention, it does come with a free Vault-Tec bobblehead.
Huh.
That's worth $300 right there.
Yep.
Boom.
This is my Vault-Tec bobblehead that I got from my Fallout crate a while back.
Hmm.
Nice.
See, Vault 111.
Yep.
So yeah,
I'm looking forward to
I want this H700 Nuka-Cola case really badly. I'll never be able to afford it.
Yeah.
All right, and that's all the quick tech news. So let's move on to our big topic for the evening. If you've been anywhere near the tech end of the internet for the last few days, you've probably heard about nothing but AMD's Threadripper 2 CPUs, because they were announced. The embargo on them was lifted early Monday morning. And so I got into work Monday morning, and all of a sudden I had about a dozen videos in my YouTube feed all about the Threadripper 2990WX, the 2950X. You know, exactly what you'd expect to see when an embargo lifts. And so there's some pretty neat things that have been put out there.
Well, it's just a partial embargo, though. Like, they're allowed to talk about unboxing it and showing it off and stuff, but not any official reviews yet, right?
Right. They can't do any performance numbers other than the officially supplied AMD ones. This was the unboxing embargo. The actual performance embargo doesn't lapse until the 13th, when the processor officially releases.
Well, it's only 5 days away, Ned.
Yep. Oh, but pre-orders are available if you want to pre-order your CPU. Because apparently that's a thing in 2018.
Yeah, I mean, people pre-ordered the Ryzen 1600 back in the day, and the 26 and the 2 series. So yeah, you can. So I was trying to get on one of those pre-orders of the Ryzen 5 line. Didn't get to it in time. The first day, it was gone in like a couple hours. It's like, well, fine.
Yeah, I always just tell people to wait for the reviews to come out.
Yeah, that's the best thing to do.
That's the safest thing to do.
Instead of you become a reviewer and then either being disappointed and have to deal with it, or you get it and it's awesome, you have a chance of it not being great. I bought a couple games on Steam, and I'm stuck with the disappointments. So yeah. I was also given one of the games when I was on a previous podcast a couple of years ago. I was given one that was actually 2 that I got stuck with. So yeah.
Yeah, I've been there and done that.
Unless you have the money and you don't mind taking the risk of being stuck with something you don't.
Well, if it's free or like $20 or less, you know, probably not that big a deal. But if it's $60 and it's a pooper, yeah, I've been there. I feel your pain.
Does anyone remember the game Hellgate London?
Yes.
Sounds familiar.
So I pre-ordered that game.
Is it a pooper?
Well, it held a lot of promise because it was done by many of the devs who had done Diablo 2. And I love Diablo 2. Still love Diablo 2. boot it up from time to time. So I got it. Me and several friends got it. We played it for a while. And then the game basically died. You can still technically find the game. It got purchased by a Korean developer, I believe, and kind of relaunched as a weird free-to-play thing. But technically the game still exists. I mean, I still have the disc somewhere, and technically I could go load up the single-player portion if I wanted to. Because it had a single player and an MMO portion.
It's got decent reviews. 70% on Metacritic.
It was a decent enough game for its time, but it was not at all what was promised.
Okay. Were they promising Diablo, essentially? Diablo 2 or whatever?
They were promising a third-person shooter. They were promising a hybrid first-person, third-person shooter with Diablo-like mechanics.
I can think of another game that was hyped up a lot and became a disappointment, but that would be saved for a different episode if we want to do it.
Does it involve a certain company that doesn't know how to count to 3?
No. It involves a company that recently patched their game to make it better than what was promised and they lied about in the original hyping.
Oh, yeah. I'm assuming we're talking about No Man's Sky, right?
Yes.
Okay. Yeah. That's a whole issue into and of itself.
Apparently
and
the
probably
is awesome now.
Probably beyond the scope of our current podcast.
Yes, exactly. That's why I said we could do it on another episode if we want to.
But from what the early stuff we're able to see, though, Threadripper 2 is not looking like a disappointment because here, I'll share my screen here for a second.
Now, Threadripper 2 is looking fantastic.
So this is from Video Card Z. This is the packaging for the Threadripper 2000 series.
It's amazing.
Yep. Looks really good.
Yeah, I thought the Threadripper 1 packaging was pretty sweet.
Yeah.
This just takes it to the next level.
Oh, yeah. It reminds me, like the trials and stuff reminds me of Deus Ex.
Yes, I got that vibe from it as well. And let's see. Also, apparently, this is from Tech Radar. The 32 Gore variant, the 2990WX, recently set a CPU benchmark record. While under liquid nitrogen, all 32 cores got clocked to 5.1 gigahertz.
That's insane.
And established a new Cinebench R15 multi-core score record. The previous was set by Intel's 28-core at 5 gigahertz CPU that they showed at Computex. That turned into such a farce.
Mm-hmm.
That 28-core CPU under that 1 kilowatt chiller hit a multi-core score of 7,344. The 2990WX, with its 32 cores, under LN2, scored 7,618 CB in Cinebench R15. Now, obviously, this is not the same. One's cooled by a very high-end water cooler. The other one was cooled by LN2. But still, it is without a doubt that Threadripper 2990WX now holds the record for the highest Cinebench score on record for the moment.
Yeah. Well, I'm sure when the reviews come out and when comparing to last year's top tier Threadripper, they'll find that they've got more than 100% more multi-threaded performance with the new part.
I wouldn't doubt it.
You know, with the Zen Plus revision, and then just adding basically, you know, twice as many cores. So it's amazing.
Yeah, AMD is touting up the fact that the 2990WX is cheaper than the Core i9-7980XE and has almost twice as many cores.
Well, when you do the maths, so when you take, so I just looked here, and I whipped out my calculator, my handy dandy Windows calculator, and you can pre-order the 2990WX, the 64 thread part, right now for $17.99. Now that is a lot of money, but when you take the cost per thread, that's $28.12 per thread. Now, when you look at its competing processor currently, which is the Core i9-7980XE, that's a 36 thread part at best price $1879.99. Now, dollar per thread for that one, $52.22. Technically, it's almost twice the price per thread. Twice the price per thread would be around $56.
Right.
So there's no competition. When you look at the platform level, not only does Threadripper give you a lot more, especially when you're looking at PCIe lanes and some of the other platform features, you get a lot more in the platform, and you just get a lot more value for your money. Or you can look at some of the bargain bin 1950s that are out there. So.
Yeah, because I guarantee you, people who bought into first-generation Threadripper, they're going to look at this, the high-end creators and the people who have the money in their pockets to do so, they're going to be looking to unload their 1950Xs and probably get a 2990WX. Or one of its... I mean, even the 2950X, yes, it's also a 16-core, 32-thread part, but it's significantly faster than the 1950X was. I mean,
well, if they, I mean, so people that purchase the 16-core, 32-thread part had valid business and use cases for those parts. So when they're looking to be able to double their performance in less than a year, that's probably going to generate them a lot more money or save them a lot more money, or both. So I could, yeah. In fact, and in a lot of cases, the VRMs on those boards might just need some passive cooling or some active cooling. So add a $13 fan, boom. Okay. A couple of zip ties. I might have done that myself recently. And you're generating a ton more income. That's a no-brainer. That is a no-brainer.
Yeah, and speaking of the motherboards, Tom's Hardware did a article on the X399 boards. They called it the X399 Redux.
Yeah.
And looked at the updated motherboards for second-gen Threadripper. And there's some pretty nice ones out there. MSI debuted their new Meg X399 Creation board, which is specifically aimed at what they're calling prosumers.
EATX.
Consumers, yeah, it's an EATX board.
It's a big board.
8 DIMM slots. It basically has all the bells and whistles. Gigabyte is rolling out new BIOSes for their previous generation Aorus Extreme. And also updating their X399 Designaire and their Aorus Gaming 7.
Oh, okay. Scroll down, Jason.
Hmm.
I was just going to say, they've only got MSI boards here.
8
Oh,
DIMM
that's
slots on an AMD board.
Man, all these boards are
Finally.
pretty.
Yeah, the last time I saw 8 DIMM slots on an AMD motherboard was a socket G34 server board that was running the old Magni Cores CPUs, the old Opterons.
Yeah. Intel's had the eight DIMM slots on their boards. Man, that socket for TR is... I mean, I knew it was huge, but still, I just can't get over how huge it is.
It is really big. I mean, let's be honest. It's a server socket put on a workstation class motherboard.
Yeah.
Well, 32 cores.
Yeah.
Right?
32.
And 4 PCIe, well, 4 graphics card slots.
Ah, AS Rock. Look at this. AS Rock's got a micro ATX form factor here. This thing looks amazing, man.
Yes, the X399M Tai Chi.
Ooh.
Now, it only has 4 DIMM slots, but that's kind of be expected on a micro ATX board. But can you imagine having, a 32-core Threadripper chip in a micro ATX form factor with a high-end graphics card?
You got to have a lot of cooling for that.
Oh, no doubt. But being able to put that in a micro ATX case,
that would be insane. That's just like, that's like having a mini ITX with a really high-end processor on it.
Well,
like Intel used to do.
You need some cooling for it, but you're looking at like better 240 AIO or better. Like a good 240 AIO or better. A 360 would easily cool it.
Yeah. I'm looking at a picture of a 360 rad on the TR.
I mean, I've got a 360 rad on this one, and I've pushed it to workloads of 180 watts, and it never gets above 55 degrees Celsius.
Nice.
And that's at an extremely conservative fan curve. I don't even hear the fans at that kind of a workload. So I think Lictech, what is it, Evercool, or they've got a Lictech 240.
Is it Intermax?
Yeah. Intermax has a Lictech 240 mil AIO that is supposed to cool up to 450 watts or something like that.
Wow.
And that was, so if you go back to last year's Threadripper reviews, a lot of the reviewers were using that specifically. In fact, I know Jay's 2 Cents reviewed that AIO, and he gave it pretty good marks. So
now I wonder about the Threadripper tower cooler, if it's going to fit the TR too.
they've got a what was that thing called? Someone's got a really nice looking air cooler. It's pretty beefy.
Cool. So AMD teamed up with Cooler Master to produce what they are calling the Threadripper.
Yep,
that's it. Right.
Specifically for the Threadripper 2 and TR4 socket. Let me tell you, that thing looks impressive.
Yeah.
I wonder how that would compare with like a Noctua NHD15.
I'm eager to find out. Let's see. I was going to see if I could find a good picture here. This one from Tom's Hardware is pretty good. This is from a slightly older story from back around Computex. But let me see if I can share it here.
Because the Threadripper's got a ton of heat pipes. Yeah, that's a nice looking cooler.
So there's a picture of it.
Oh, wow.
From Computex from Tom's Hardware.
Yeah,
and of course,
there's a big PWM fan that sits in between. There's 2 columns right there, right? So there's a big fan that sits in between.
That's right. Okay.
How many heat pipes? 1,
2, 3, 4,
7 in
6.
total, I believe.
Is there 7? I see 6 for sure.
Yeah, there's a 7th. There's a 7th one right here.
That heatsink mount?
Yeah, see 1, 2,
yeah,
3, 4, 5, 6, and 7.
So that's 14.
Well, it's 7 that pass through.
If you count the other side as well.
Right.
That's impressive. Looks pretty sweet.
Oh yeah. 250 watts, which is a CR4, or not TR4, right? Threadripper 2.
What's that? How many watts?
It says it dissipates 250 watts of thermal output, which is the same as a Threadripper 2, or at least probably one of them.
Yeah, the 2990WX is rated for 250 watt TDP. The others have lower TDPs. The 2970.
Go ahead.
2970, I think, is a 220 watt, whereas the 2950X and the 2920X, I think, are like 150 and 180 watts, respectively.
Mm. Yeah, I don't know about Threadripper on the 2 top tier parts, but definitely anything 200 watts or lower.
Well, they're saying Threadripper is designed to handle up to 250 watt TDP. So
yeah,
I'm sure it'd do fine in most workloads, but I don't
know. Yeah, we won't know for sure until we actually see benchmark numbers. But
yeah, I mean, if I'm throwing that kind of money out, I would feel safer with an AIO or custom liquid cooling.
I would say custom liquid cooling.
Let's see. Oh, yeah, there's one other thing I wanted to mention. AMD put out one of their own publicity videos for Threadripper 2, and they made mention, let me see if I can find it here. Yeah, right here. It's about 55 seconds into this 1.5-minute long video, but they show side-by-side Cinebench charts. For the 2990WX, using the Threadripper cooler, you know, earlier we said on LN2 at 5.1 gigahertz on all cores, it hit 7618. On air, at its stock frequencies, it hit 4900 in Cinebench.
Not bad.
Now compare that to the 7980XE, which in the same test hit 3309. So, again, you know, they give all the details about, you know, what conditions they tested under, all that lovely stuff. But they were running both at stock with the stock heatsink fans and coolers. And, or well, I say stock. They were using the Threadripper with the 2990WX and the Intel thermal solution that Intel sells, the air cooler for their X299 parts.
Yeah, it's going to be another game changer.
At least on the high end, that's for sure.
Absolutely.
But if you aren't made out of money and you still want to rip threads of your own, on Tuesday, if you had been diligent on Amazon, you would have seen that AMD's 12-core 1920X got an insane price cut down to $249 until they sold out of inventory. So they are definitely trying to clear out the first generation Threadrippers. The entire inventory sold out within a matter of hours. And for a brief time, it was the #1 most sold processor on Amazon, at least in the US. Excuse me. Anyway, unfortunately, now that sale is over, as apparently Amazon has cleared out most of their remaining stock. Right now on Amazon, you can purchase the same CPU, but it's from a third-party seller for $427. Considering the 1920X started out at, I believe, it was $749. That's still a decent savings, even at $400. If you're wanting,
even when you compare it to current A-core, it's not bad.
Yeah, if you're wanting an entry-level chip to get yourself started on a Threadripper PC, that's not the 1920X at that price. Even that higher $400 price is not a bad one. If you were quick on the draw, the 1950X was also on sale for $599 US.
Yeah, so you get either one of those, a nice X399, GABA RAM.
Yep.
Save your pennies for the Big Daddy TR2 parts. A little, maybe 6 months down the line.
Yeah, if you're doing high-end production work, it'd be worth it. For the reduced render times and whatnot. All right. Well, I think that covers most of the things we wanted to talk about Threadripper. I think I hit most of the articles. You all have anything else you want to discuss regarding Threadripper or really anything tech-related?
Not that I can think of.
I mean, this week has been a little slower tech news-wise, with pretty much the entire news cycle being taken up by Threadripper.
Yeah.
I did notice. Now I know power supplies are kind of boring, but I don't know. Sometimes I get on Newegg occasionally and just kind of play around. I noticed an EVGA. Let me pull it up. So I noticed this EVGA Supernova 750 watt. It's an 80 plus gold, fully modular for like $79.
Nice.
Considering what power supply prices have been, there's also a G3, which is also 80 plus gold, fully modular for the same price. Both from EVGA. Not sure what the differences are.
I think the G3 is just the newer generation. I'm not sure there's a huge difference internally.
Was it G2 and G3?
So there's the Supernova G1 Plus, and then there's the Supernova G3. I'll put the filter thread here in the chat. Oh, Google.
Alrighty.
Where is the?
And it looks like the G2 version of the same power supply is also $79.99, but only after a $20 mail-in rebate.
Yeah, it's probably not Seasonic reliable, but I've had a few EVGA PSUs in some of my more recent builds, and I know one guy I built a computer for about 2 years ago. Still runs fine. It's nice and quiet.
I don't remember who the OEM is for EVGA's power supply. I want to say it's Superflower, but which Superflower has a pretty decent track record.
Do they?
But I'd have to check to be sure.
No.
So yeah, this kind of caught my eye. I was having some sluggish computer issues earlier in the week, and then all of a sudden I got the blue screen, and then had to reinstall Windows and all that. And yeah, fun.
Oh yeah, always hate it when that happens.
Yeah.
Speaking of dinking around on Newegg, though, I came across a deal earlier today. This kind of came up in the podcast chat that we keep during the week to keep each other informed and discuss topics before we come on here and discuss it before all you lovely people.
Yeah.
The Silicon Power Ace A55 SSD. It is a 1 terabyte SSD and is currently on sale for the next 6 days on Newegg for $159.99.
It's a heck of a deal.
Mm-hmm.
It's rated 4 eggs out of 5 in the reviews. From what I can tell, most of the reviews, there are a few reviews that talk about it going out in the first couple of months of service, but those appear to be a relative minority of the reviews. Most of them, it installed, and it's been working fine ever since. I mean, the truth of the matter is, with any electronic product, sometimes you just get a dud. But at this price, I almost think it'd be worth it to roll the dice, as it were.
Yeah.
Yeah. Plus, I mean, you're also dealing with PC hardware, and if people have built their systems, a lot of people, either they're new builders or whatever, they'll skimp on something like a power supply, which it's not a good idea to skimp on.
Right.
And sometimes you'll have a bad power supply that just simply provides too much voltage on one of the rails, be it a 5 or 12 volt rail or something, and they'll burn parts out.
Yep. I've been there, done that.
I found a funny review on this SSD. Pros: I bought it for my wife. She likes it. Cons: I bought it for my wife. She likes it. I guess he's like, I didn't buy it for myself. I bought it for my wife, and for the cons part. Thought that was funny.
So yeah, if you're looking for a 1 terabyte of fairly speedy storage,
yeah, 560 megabytes read and 530 write. That's not bad. That's actually pretty good.
Yeah, I will point out that it does say up to, which we all know when that comes to specifications, that is a weasel word.
Yes.
Yeah.
But 560 is right up there, butting up against the top end of the SATA 6 range. So all I'd say is get yourself a copy of Crystal Dismark and run it against the drive and see how it does.
Yeah. And run it a couple times, not just once.
Yeah, honestly, though, I mean, when you're looking at this current generation of SSDs, SATA SSDs, they're all going to perform about the same. You just want to look at the reliability ratings of the model, and as long as you can get a good price and the warranty's decent, I mean,
yeah, and this does come with a 3-year warranty, if I remember correctly.
So, yeah, I mean, if I had the money, I'd definitely buy this right now, because very soon here I'll be looking for a 1 terabyte SSD.
I mean, at the very least, at this price point, it'd make an excellent, an excellent Steam library for your Steam games. Yep. It would make a good scratch disk if you're doing video production. just in general, it looks like a solid option for someone wanting a lot of fast storage for not that much money.
Exactly.
All right, and I do believe that covers everything we have in the show notes. So, any last minute thoughts?
Yeah, Ned, you didn't introduce me at the beginning of the show.
I'm sorry, Jason.
I don't care.
Hunter, you have anything else?
Just waiting to see for more parts to go down in price a little bit more.
The eternal struggle, right?
Yep.
If I just wait a little longer, the price will go down more.
Although some of the deals are like, yeah, I could take a chance, and then they disappear. It's like, great, I have to wait for them to come back on New XLs or New X Flash or whatever. New X Flash has had a couple of good deals, like the CryoRig H7 was like $25. Or,
Yeah, that's a good cooler.
Yeah, it's $34.99 currently, not on sale. And it was like $26 on sale. That's a really good, that's the price of a Hyper 212 Evo.
Nice.
And the great thing about that cooler is the CryoRig cooler is 100% RAM clearance, which makes me so happy. That's what I hated about the Hyper 212 Plus and Evo, is that fan is so thick that it blocks out the first RAM slot of your 4 RAM slot motherboard. It's like you're wasting money having a 4 RAM slot, even though most people used only 2 RAM sticks and they didn't care to fill up the 4 slots. But you have 4 slots, you can fill it up at some point.
So what do you do? What do you do if you've got that? Do you buy a slim 120 fan, or?
Yeah, I didn't buy that back in the day, but that's what I would have done if I knew about getting a slim fan.
The other option I've seen with people who had the 212 Evo who ran into that problem, if you weren't using if you weren't using like an X79 or an X99 chipset, just put the fan where it pulls instead of pushes and put it on the other side of the CPU cooler.
Yeah.
It's not quite as effective, but you're not going to notice enough difference for it to matter.
When I was using that back in the day, I forgot what CPU I was running with. It could have been the 8320. The idle temps were like 26 degrees, and the load temps were like 34, 35 degrees. It was a really amazing cooler. It's just you could only use 2 RAM sticks, which is fine. But I would rather use all 4 if I have all 4 slots.
Which I had an NHD. I had an NHD 14, which is the precursor to the 15.
Yeah.
On my 8320, that's how I was able to run it overclocked at 4.6 every day.
Gotcha.
And even that thing. So I had 4 sticks of DDR3 RAM, and that thing, it was low profile RAM though, but it did cover the RAM, but it was tall enough to where like the top of the RAM was here, and then the bottom of the fan was here.
Yeah.
So there was still enough clearance, but yeah, that kind of bites, man. Hyper 212, that's probably one of my favorite air coolers of all time, because it was like, $20, $30, you get this tower cooler, and then you curse at it while you're like getting it mounted onto the board, because the mounting mechanism's ridiculously bad. But once you got it on there, it performed extremely well, even though it had like a not the greatest stock fan, but it was quiet, performed great.
Oh yeah, it was really quiet.
Yeah, I remember when I upgraded from my 212 Evo, I upgraded to this was back when NZXT made air coolers. I got the NZXT Havoc 120.
I remember that thing.
And I still have that cooler on an older system at my parents' house, and The thing was, that cooler cost twice as much as the Evo, but it didn't cool twice as well.
Hmm.
It cooled better, but not twice as well. That said, I was even on a 212 Evo, I was able to get a 2600K up to 4.3 gigahertz. So
there really hasn't been a whole lot of innovation in the heatsink market. In a lot of cases, it almost seems like they're taking the same 120 mil tower cooler and they're just maybe adding some RGB, maybe putting some plastic shroud on it, and like.
Well, Cryorig had copper line of their air coolers, like the C7 copper and the H7 copper, and that did really well in thermal dissipation. It just had a little bit of premium cost because it's copper, of course.
Ah, that makes sense. I want to say there's almost been more innovation in the in your smaller form factor builds.
Yeah,
like that Cryorig. Cryorig's got like one or two, I think. That's pretty good for small form factor. Noctua's got an amazing one, small form factor.
Oh yeah, L9I and NHL9A. A is a little bit longer, but like the fan is on there, and there's a little bit of more fin size for the fans. The NHL9I is just like a perfect square, and it doesn't interfere with RAM.
I like the one.
It does really well.
I like the one where you can mount the fan underneath the heatsink.
Yeah.
mm-hmm.
It looks especially good in cases that have a hole kind of filtered but cut out.
Yeah.
Especially when, because it almost looks like the top of the heatsink is almost mounted like right in front of that filter, and it's just so cool to see like that radiator.
Yeah.
Sitting right in front of that filter, kind of looks beefy.
Be Quiet has that kind of their Shadow Rock LP and Dark Rock LP are the same kind of structure as the Noctua.
Oh, really?
Yeah, the Noctua that has the fin right here, and then you can put a fan on top, or it has two fans, and you can either have both fans on, or you can just take the top one off, and it has a bottom one pushing the air up. Push configuration. So if you have a case that's the fan on the top is too high, you can take that fan off.
Nice.
I think they have actually two versions of it. One that's really tall, one that's shorter. Yeah, here's the NHL12 is shorter, and the NHC14S is a tall heatsink. Noctua's fans are like the best in the industry of fans.
Yeah, they're ugly, but
yeah.
Man, those things, they're just engineered so well.
Oh yeah. I think also Be Quiet has Be Quiet's Shadow Wings or whatever the fans are. They're really good too. Of course, Be Quiet's a German engineer. I think Noctua might be also a German company. So they know how to make fans. They just, unfortunately, for some reason, Noctua picked terrible colors.
I almost think that's intentional with them. It's a branding thing. I really think it is.
Yeah.
It makes it stand out.
You know a Noctua fan on site.
Right.
Mm-hmm. Light brown. They came out with a Redux brand, which is gray and dark gray. So it's slightly better for a case of aesthetics, but and same kind of quality. as the regular kind of fans, the NH fans.
Well, they're coming out. I had seen. I don't know if it was CES or what, but I saw them coming out with a black line of some of their more popular coolers and fans. So they'll probably sell quite a few of those.
Oh yeah.
I'd love to see them come out. So one thing I really like about Fractal is their black fan base and then their white blades.
Yes.
I love that fan design.
Yeah, that minimalist design is nice.
Mm-hmm. It's especially great for like the Halos, the Fantex Halos frames.
Yeah.
Because if you're into RGB, you can get those fan frames for either $10 or $20, depending on if you go with the plastic or aluminum housing. And the light reflects so well on those white fan blades.
Yeah.
Looks really good. But yeah.
All right. Well, anything else, gentlemen?
Downloading Steam games.
Always a fun exercise.
Yeah, reinstall. Doing the reinstall dance.
Yeah, I got to do that too. I got to keep doing that with mine.
Only have like 350-ish gigs of storage right now until I get a 1 terabyte SSD.
Yeah.
It's coming. It's coming. It's not quite yet.
All right. Well, I guess this is probably as good a place as any to call it an evening. Remember down below, everyone, we thank you for watching. Remember down below, you can find the description where you can find links to all the articles we discussed, as well as links to other videos in the TechForge series, and all kinds of other great content on our YouTube channel. You can also find us on our Twitch channel, where we're streaming at least 5 nights a week. And remember, I'm Dynamo Ned. This has been TechForge. And remember, when life gets you down, forge on.
Yep.
I don't see the links. Where are the links? I'm looking down there. Where are the links at?